Okay, right, here we go.
G'day, mate.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dowdeswell podcast. I am very excited to do the second episode. My guest today is the great trumpeter, psychologist, and golfer Greg Spence. Greg is currently residing in Coolum Beach, about an hour north of Brisbane, Australia, and has been a force for good in the community of brass and wind players for many years. He runs an online course and community called Mystery to Mastery that helps people with playing wind instruments the correct way, but also is known for his incredible ability to help people struggling with neurological disorders such as Bell's palsy and focal dystonia, as well as stage fright, stutters, and confidence issues. Greg is a problem solver and also a total geek about the process of learning. Now, I must just say, when I was writing this out, Greg did correct me that this isn't in fact the truth, but it is the story that I keep hearing from people, so I'm going to tell it the story anyway. So much so that he got bored at being a scratch golfer right-handed, that he became a scratch golfer left-handed. I believe he is now back to right-handed, so the cycle continues. Anyway, we'll find out about that later. We met many years ago in London. I was already a fan of Greg's concepts and understanding on how the trumpet and embouchure worked, but our friendship has flourished into a much more profound and broad relationship. I went through some playing difficulties between COVID and about 18 months ago, and he was instrumental in my coming back after injury. I participated in a 3-hour Sunday sessions interview on his platform a year or so ago, and we discussed meditation, intention, and mind. I wanted to see how far we could push these subjects today in the framing of trumpet and golf, and also discuss the mechanisms of learning from a neurological perspective, and hopefully between us we can offer some useful techniques and knowledge. Greg is a fountain of knowledge himself and a wisdom, and a fine gentleman. I'm very lucky to be able to share this platform with him, and I can't wait to see where this conversation goes. Well, Greg.
Perfect. Just the way I wrote it. Thank you.
How's it going?
Lovely to see you, my friend. I'm absolutely wonderful. Living in paradise. Enjoying life, kicking goals, making discoveries, helping people, and all in all, living a good life, you know. And I'm sure we're going to go down the path of what is the meaning of life. Let's just get that out of the way first, and then we can move on.
Exactly. I think my first question here is maybe a little too intense. We'll maybe move that a little further down the line here, because we need to get to the other things first. But sure. Anyway, yeah. I mean, so you're a trumpet player. Of course, and maybe it would be fair to say that trumpet has kind of brought you to these other things in your life. Maybe you can just do a quick rundown on your story with the trumpet, your journey with the trumpet, and then where it's taken you and what your intentions are now.
Well, I'm an accidental trumpet player, and I started off in a brass band and was inspired by the people in the band, and it was a fun social environment growing up. But then I got given the trumpet and I was introduced to James Morrison, and I heard Maynard Ferguson and I heard Lee Morgan, and all of a sudden the cornet ceased to exist and the trumpet was my new thing. Turns out that playing like James Morrison, Maynard Ferguson or Lee Morgan wasn't quite as easy as one might think. So in the teenage gusto years of trying to figure out how to play like the best in the world, you run into quite a few roadblocks. And so I practiced and got worse and worse and frustrated. But I ended up I auditioned for the Victorian College of the Arts as an early 20s. I started a double degree accounting computing because my father was suggesting perhaps get a real job and then get the study behind you and then maybe do the music thing after. And thankfully, when I said I want to go and do the music after dropping out of my double degree, they were very supportive, and I auditioned and got into the Victorian College of the Arts. And that's where I found that no amount of practice or anything like that was getting me the results that I wanted. So the research began. And basically what I've discovered over many, many years is the understanding of brass instruments as the whole, as far as the planet goes, is, as far as I'm concerned, the complete opposite of what's actually going on and what needs to be understood and developed. And so from an early age, if I ever discovered something new in the brass band, I'd be happy to share it. I just want to share things that I learned to help people. It's just this thing that I've got, right? Check this out, check this out. Oh, I discovered this. So I'm enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm hopefully, affects the people around me. So that was my introduction to playing. I learned a lot through, I did the deep dive. Now, very quickly, let's just put this out there. And I'm only talking about this in the last couple of days, and I said it to one of my Dystonia students this morning. 3 levels of learning. Your average Joe who goes to band practice or picks up a golf club and plays once a week, doesn't do any practice, doesn't really think about it much, has fun, social, whatever. 2nd level of learning, might get a lesson here and there, might do an extra bit of practice at home, go to the driving range. 3rd tier of practice, this is where I come in. 3rd tier of learning. There requires a degree, you'll totally get this, it requires a degree of obsession at some stage to get to the mastery level. And most people don't get there. And if I just put up a little picture here.
Yeah.
We have this brain and we want to unlock the brain. Yeah. And in order to get the results that we're after, we'll talk about this as we go through, but there's visualization. What do we want? The intention of what we're working on. What do we want to achieve? The brain learns by in our case, golf or trumpet playing, whatever, the brain learns by the experience, the feeling of it. It's got to experience what we want or what we don't want. And then there's this messaging between the conscious mind and the subconscious brain. And that's what's the way I've always taught, that's opened up the whole damn planet for people with dystonia and Bell's palsy and all this sort of stuff. So basically, it's a learning process that I happen to find quite innate, quite natural. And I had to discover what was holding me back to being the player that I wanted to be. And thanks to lessons from a lot of great players all around the world, Bobby Shue was one of the big names early on where I got a lesson from. And I walked into that lesson going, Bobby, I think I'm doing a lot of things wrong. And I left an hour later, convinced that I was right. That started me on the path to reconsider everything that I ever learned. And it's an ongoing journey to break down. So to get that brain working, we've got to have knowledge and we've got to have understanding. And the 3rd level of learning, most people won't take. We've got to delve deep into how the system works, how the brain learns, how the body works, how the golf stick or the instrument work. We've got to understand that, and then we've got to have focus and determination. We've got to practice, we've got to work at it, we've got to ride through the tough times, we've got to celebrate the good times, and eventually the brain learns.
This feels like a good time to get onto intention, and I imagine that most conversation will be bound up in intention.
Yeah.
Now, okay, let's use Harry James or anyone that maybe didn't have your Mystery to Mastery, right? Or anyone really that got world class at the trumpet, or actually anything that didn't have this understanding. Surely the only difference between those people and the people that can't do what they do was their intention behind why they were doing it. And is your job, or do you see, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but do you see your job as helping people bridge the gap between level 2 and level 3 so that people understand that they have to get to level 3 tier in order to get to Harry James, right? Like, in order to get to Harry James, you kind of have to know why Harry James wanted to do what Harry James is best at.
Yeah.
That's the way it seems to me. And the only thing that's kind of getting in people's way is their intention. Is that fair?
Not necessarily the intention.
Okay.
They can have the intention, but then they've got the obstacles. What are the obstacles? I have the intention to sound like Harry James. Now, don't forget that we've mentioned James Morrison, Harry James, Maynard Ferguson, Lee Morgan, and if I go through some other, Bud Herseth, Rafael Mendez, Wynton Marsalis. I love all genres. It's just that I chose to play in the commercial field, but
yeah,
they're the anomalies.
Yes.
right? Let's face it, Lewis Dowdeswell, not everyone can do on the trumpet what you can do, right? A lot of people can't. Most people can't. Now, they don't have less intention. You had intention to get great. They've got intention to get great. You've made it on a massive level, and my dear friend, all the kudos, respect, and everything to you. Magnificent.
Thank you.
Why don't others get there? My philosophy on this is, I'm not asking people, and I say this to Dystonia students all the time, I'm not asking you to jump off the balcony and grow wings and fly.
Yeah.
We're only asking people to do what they're physically capable of. Now, whether it be trumpet or whether it be the golf swing, everyone has, well, more with golf really than trumpet, to be honest, but there are limitations. As we get older, our lung capacity gets smaller, for example, so we need to be more efficient. You need to understand the system more too. But we're all capable of amazing things. So we don't need the knowledge. Now, some people will figure it out, like Bubba Watson, golfer, left-handed, never had a lesson, figured it out. Now, Harry James might have known all of this. Oh, we're very humid up here. Sorry about that. He might have just been able to pick up the horn, and from a young age,
Sing.
Just sing. He made it work. He loved it. Or he might have been a guy that went, I want to play like that guy or like that guy, and I can't. Why can't I? What don't I know?
Well, what is the difference between these people, though? Because maybe we can just quickly define intention a little, just so that we're on the same page exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what someone says isn't their intention, in my opinion. Like, what they say, like, I want to do this.
Yeah, right.
Well, do you believe that? Because you don't do it, right? Like, maybe this is a hard truth, but like, just by saying I intend to do this, that it's your actions that are your action. And this is one of the things it's hard to explain to people when they say, how do I do this? How do I do it? Well, like, what are you intending? You know, I remember I did a lot of work when I was younger, more than some and less than others, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe as a childlike mind, I don't know why I was doing it. Maybe it was a distraction, like just playing the trumpet was a distraction from just the world, you know? I don't know. It could have been. Or people are pushed into it and they fall away from it, which I would say maybe would be a bad intention, right? Which is why it doesn't have the sustenance. It doesn't sustain the passion. So, like, maybe that's what I'm saying is what someone says, I intend to sound like X. Like, the reality is that they don't end up coming away with that because how intent are you on it? So
it's very easy to buy a gym membership.
Exactly. We go straight to the hard truth.
Arnold Schwarzenegger did more than buy the freaking membership, right? No one gets to the top level without putting some serious hard work into something. I don't care I don't care whether it's golf. I don't care whether it's trumpet. I don't care what it is. It's not just going to turn up on your doorstep. Although for some, there's a great friend of mine, trombone player in Melbourne. I won't say his name out loud, but he's a fantastic player, and it was never a challenge for him. You just pick it up and play it. But
see, I would maybe say that maybe that person is just aligned very well with whatever their purpose is, right? And it's just they've fallen into it. Maybe something like that.
It's the law of averages. You could walk into any room and have 100 kids there and give them an instrument. 2 of them will never play a note. 2 of them will sound unbelievable from the first note. The rest of them will be a varying degree of, okay, we can work on that.
It's a bell curve, right?
Absolutely.
It's like the IQ bell curve, or the Pareto distribution and all that sort of thing.
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
So you can have all the intention in the world if you're not prepared to put the work in, right? It's how much.
All the work is the intention.
Well, and that probably sums me up, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I love the word learning geek. I've never been called that before, but I'm going to own it because it just so happens that that I get some stuff. I just don't know why, but I get these things about, I want to achieve something. It's physically possible and I've got a desire to do it. So I'm going to do it and I'm going to just work on it. Once I sort of figure out, oh, I've got that, well then, okay, what's the next challenge? You know? Yeah. Hence left-handed golf, you know.
It's left-handed golf. Well, let's talk about golf for a minute, just because I don't know why people know you as a. Is it mainly just the fact that you feel that it's a good analogy to the trumpet, that you talk about it? I certainly use golf a lot in my teaching now, even if they're non-golfers, because it's very visual. You know, and you can kind of explain to someone in a way that you can't really describe what's happening inside the oral cavity so easily and things like that. You know, once someone's got they don't even need to hit golf balls. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what is it about golf? So there are a lot of moving parts in playing trumpet. There are a lot of moving parts in playing golf, right? Now, the brain is trying to do a lot of foreign things at the one time. It's not used to doing these things like going and playing an instrument. We won't talk about that. But like from caveman days, we use strength to get results. We're going to kill the other guys. We're going to kill the food. We're going to use strength. We're going to, and if someone stronger comes along, we're history. There's no blooming Zen judo cavemen, as far as I know. Maybe there were, but there's this innate thing about strength. Now, what does everyone want to do is hit the golf ball really hard to get it further. Yet when you get flow, process, and connection, the ball goes way further with way less effort. And if you and your lovely viewers watching can sit at home and put your fingers on your abdominal wall and just don't do anything, just have it sitting on your belly, above your belly button. And I think I've played about 5 notes in the last week at the moment because I'm doing other things. But check this out. There's no blow there, and I'm playing, you know, up in the high register, which once upon a time would take all of the, right, all the effort you can possibly muster to play. And that's kind of what we get taught, right? And so the same things apply. If we've got the understanding of what we're working on, we've got the knowledge of how the system works, and then we strategically go on building a golf swing or a trumpet technique, all of a sudden we discover, because of our knowledge, because of what we're working on, and we understand the feelings that we want, and we understand how to train the brain to not overexert, all of a sudden we start to get results that are beyond what we would have previously considered possible. And there is a phenomenon of strangeness. Right? The phenomenon of strangeness is, and I cop this all the time, is when I say things, and I think even when we spoke last year, and I talk about humming and its relationship to playing, and you've gone on that note, you know, I'm a bit suspect on this whole thing about humming and brass playing. Brass playing's no harder than humming. Come on, Greg, let's get to the crux of the thing here. But the bottom line is, when we understand the mechanics, then we do drills to train the brain what we want. There's a feeling attached to it. Now, remember I said before, the brain learns by the feeling. So if we show the brain the feeling that we want, that's laying the groundwork, or what I call the point of difference, where we do drills, we train the brain the feeling. It's very different to what we feel like when we're playing the instrument or playing golf. That's why I went left-handed, because it's that ridiculous. I said to my forum, my members, but on the forum, I'm going to teach you the learning process, because mystery to mastery is the learning process. I want to get somewhere, but I don't know how. I'm stuck. It's a mystery. I'm stuck. Mastery. I want to get better. There's no ego attached to this. It's just, let's go from here to here, right? And so what we're doing is demonstrating a learning process. If it's physically possible, we don't have to grow feathers. Yeah.
what are we doing wrong? I'm not teaching people what to do. Every single person on the planet, as long as they've seen you pick up a horn and play, know how to play the trumpet. Every single person on the planet knows how to hit a golf ball. You see someone hit it, stick, ball, hit, easy. Trumpet, pick it up, blow hard, go red in the face, easy. So where does it all go so horribly wrong? That's what I do. My number one teaching tool is this magnifying glass. We've got to look deep inside, eyes closed, introverted learning, to understand a system and learn a feeling of what we want. And that will feel different to what you're doing at the moment. So the phenomenon of strangeness, I said on my forum, I'm going to show you the learning process, the WinWorks learning, I should call it SwingWorks learning process. I'm going to show you the learning process. I'm going to teach myself to play golf left-handed, right? Because the truth, Louis, you just look somewhere else. The truth is, guys, I sucked for 35 years as a right-handed golfer, and I moved to Queensland and thought, I'm going to learn to play again. Why start right-handed with all these bad habits? I want a blank canvas. I'm going to start left-handed. My dad and my brother-in-law, when I told them, thought I was cuckoo, which I kind of am, and thus started the process. I got to the Sydney airport on the way home in the Qantas lounge, and I was putting the thing up on the forum saying I'm going to show you the SwingWorks learning process, and started watching YouTube videos. Now, we could talk a lot about YouTube videos, which would be an interesting topic, but basically I immersed myself, and COVID hit, so it was perfect time, and I've got pictures where I was on my balcony and I had a big double bed sheet printed with a green and a clubhouse to have the environment that is conducive to learning. And I started doing things that felt insane. Insane. Try throwing a ball left, try picking your nose left-handed. You know, it's just left-handed feels ridiculous. And it's like, that's awesome, because the brain learns from the feeling, and the more strange the feeling, phenomenon of strangeness, the faster the brain learns. So 12 months later, I entered a amateur golf championship.
There he is.
I won the first day of a tournament. And the funny thing was, a guy named Matt Rogers, who's a famous Australian rugby player, league and was union and league.
Yeah.
He was in my group. He's famous.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've got up there and I've hit 40 handicap, Stableford points. We don't need to go into that. But they called the B grade winner at 38 points. And Matt Rogers stands up, puts his hand up and says, this bloke on my table hit 40 points and he did it left-handed. And they screwed it up. So I ended up winning the day.
Oh, wow.
And there were 4 courses in. I sucked for the other 3 days. I was terrible. But it doesn't matter. All the presidents of all the other 4 clubs came up and said, what's he talking about, this left-handed thing? And so they organised this newspaper article that ended up in Australia's leading golf magazine. But it's the learning process that I wanted to demonstrate. And 12 months after that, I won the B grade club championship around the corner. And it's like, I'm done now. I've got the trophy. Are you paying attention? There's a learning process that we're all involved in. And it takes a degree of understanding and dedication to achieve an outcome. So my intention was not to go left-handed and win the US Masters. My intention was to learn something and help people by sharing something.
Okay. Yeah. This seems to be, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Your intention wasn't of a prideful nature. It wasn't to get, right? It was to give, in a way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
And because I think that the intention to get doesn't sustain, because once you've got your eyes focused on the goal, and if you may never ever reach that goal, or you may reach it quickly. I mean, I did a lot of things in my early 20s, and I had accomplished quite a lot of the things that I set out to do when I was 16
Right.
by pretty early on. And I was pretty miserable after that, not going to lie, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was because that sort of grieving feeling when you realize that there's no light at the end of, or there's no gold at the end of that rainbow, right? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think
it's not
more
what it's all cracked up to be.
yeah, because the journey has to be right. And I think as a child, like, you're just playing because it's fun. Now, when I see, so much to say on the matter, like with golf and things. When you see a kid hit golf balls, they'll hit 100 terrible ones, and then they'll hit they'll flush one, and they'll say, "Daddy, Daddy, did you see that?" If you see an adult learning golf, they'll probably hit like a lot of really bad shots, get very, very angry during it, and then hit a good one and then say, "Finally," or something like that. You know, it's kind of, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously not all adults are like this, but there's an intention.
On the golf course. On the golf course.
Well, that's another conversation. But on the driving range, you know, when you're trying to get this strangeness thing together, the childlike mentality doesn't seem to have a block. It looks at the wins, and then it aims at those wins, and then it learns by that. You know, you'll know more about this than I do, but that's what I've noticed anyway. It doesn't seem to be under frustration. And the worst I've ever got, my trumpet playing has never been worse than when I desperately, desperately want an outcome that I can't get because my intention or attention is on the wrong thing. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, sure. That can, I mean, that
I'm not saying don't have goals, but like understand why you're aiming at the goal, and then you'll see more fruits.
Absolutely. Well, we have to understand. We've got to have I call it the dream avatar, and that's going to constantly change as you develop. What
Yes.
looks like, you know, you're probably not going to be able to really see it, but there's the journey that we're on, and we've got desire. So of course it's a streetcar named Desire, and then we've got our dream avatar, which is playing on stage, and everyone's stage is different. Some people want to be the first trumpet in their local amateur brass quintet, and some want to tour the world with whoever or on their own with their own name, and all of that's cool. Not everyone wants to do that, but we expectations, number one, can change, because once we develop, and I'm sure this happened with you, as you developed and developed more, but you developed quite quickly and you had the repertoire down very early, all of a sudden there might have been a bit of a void, like, oh, I've got that now, what's next? And I remember having the G-sharp conversation with you when you were developing your range, and it was a bit of a ceiling for you. And then all of a sudden you figured it out, and then you figured out another octave on top of that.
And then G-sharp became very hard, by the way, which is interesting, because once you overcome the ceiling, you can't push into it anymore, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
If the G-sharp's an easy note, or it's your limit, you can just pump into it. But as soon as you can play an A, you have to finesse the G-sharp.
Sure.
Not very nice.
No, it's not nice, but it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right. But it's like our expectations always change, and the same thing about the feathers and the wings. As long as our expectations are reasonable, rational, and achievable, then we go about working towards that. Now, the big thing is, and as I've gone back to right-handed now, my intention is to get to scratch, right?
Okay.
That's my intention, because I want to develop it. The mystery to mastery thing is moving away from trumpet into the learning process that it always was. It just so happened that I use my learning processes and understanding, because I was playing trumpet and I had limitations, I put this information and this process into my trumpet playing, and it eventually opened up massive doors and took me all around the world. Fantastic. So, but it's not the trumpet playing, and I constantly say this to my students, people with dystonia, whatever. The trumpet's not what we're working on, or even trumpet players. We're working on a learning process of eliminating errors and developing successes, right? So whether it's golf, dart, trumpet, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
It's like we're just trying to train the brain to do things automatically so we don't have to think about it. I can sit here all day long and slap myself across the face. I'll never miss, no matter what, until I pass out. Right, so no thoughts are required in that. But picking the horn up or picking a golf club up can take a lot of, I call it RAM, a lot of conscious thought. And so what we do is we do a process of understanding the process of what am I working on, what am I trying to achieve here, one thing at a time, micro bits, not a million things at a time, and then accepting errors, because errors are quite an integral part to the learning process. And people don't want to make the errors, so you got all those people on the golf course and the driving range getting angry. That's not smart. I'm going to send you a link to a video that I did called Good Days, Bad Days, if you want to put it in the description. It talks about this because anger releases cortisol and all these negative brain chemicals that aren't conducive to changing the brain. However, frustration leveraged in the right way, knowing I'm capable of doing something else, but I'm not getting the result. I'm mishitting it. If you leverage that in the right way, that sends out epinephrine, acetylcholine, these brain chemicals, and the subconscious brain, who I call Brian, because if you're going to draw a picture of a brain and he needs a name, it's going to be called Brian, right? So Brian the brain, he goes, oh, Greg's not happy.
Yeah.
Why isn't he happy? So we keep trying and we keep trying and we get that burn of frustration, but then all of a sudden something happens because Brian's looking around and he's changing things. He's changing that, or changing this, changing whatever the case may be. Then all of a sudden you get the result that you want and you release dopamine and Brian goes, oh, Greg happy now, right? We better start and build towards that process. So the intention of getting a result, and most people on the driving range, they just all think they look like Tiger Woods or Nelly Porter, and they expect to hit the ball straight every single time and long every single time. And trumpet players just want to sound like Louis Dowdeswell or Wayne Bergeron or whoever. And it's like, well, that is possible, but why isn't it happening? What's getting in the way? Why can't you do that? And if you do happen to get one note that sounds like Louis, why can't you get two? Where's the inconsistency come from? So it's just it's such a complex situation. Can
I get your take on something?
Yeah.
So I started learning golf in 2023, May, about a week before my second child was born. Worst decision ever.
You played trumpet,
me for that.
You've taken up golf, and you're about to have another junior.
So I took up golf, and in proper Louis fashion, I bought a golf cage and a driving range mat and a what do they call them? A monitor, launch monitor. So I could do simulations in the garden.
Which one?
Play golf. The R10 Garmin.
Yeah.
Anyway, it had to go. It had to go. The whole thing went. I made it go because I had this thing where I'd go and my 7-iron would be near the door. I was thinking maybe 1,000 to 1,200 balls a day when I started. My shoulders were bad and all this sort of thing. And I got a bit flippy and all this, whatnot. Just bad habits, same as the trumpet for any of the trumpet players out there.
What?
But I went for a golf lesson at a very, very, very expensive, high-end course in the area. Paid lots of money for the lesson. And the guy told me, yeah, it's because you're humping the ball. Right? And now, if you go on YouTube, you can see, early extension and whatnot, right? There's always a problem, you're humping the ball. Anyway,
I've never heard that term, and I've watched a billion zillion.
Well, I think I have tight hamstrings, right? Like, oh wow! But then he said, it's because of this, and I thought, no, it's not. There are 85-year-olds who are shooting better than me. I can barely break 100, you know? So I thought, that's not the answer. Like, it can't be the answer. Like, that's like, I can't even think of an analogy on the trumpet, but there's got to be something. Anyway.
Oh, there's a million of them. Because the trumpet world's exactly the same.
Yeah. Oh. So exactly. So anyway, I kind of felt a bit cheated. I went for a second lesson with him, and I was sort of done. Like, next it was my lats. It was like, okay, cool, right, whatever, TPI, whatever. So I went on YouTube, and there was a guy there called Luther Blacklock, who is a golf coach. Used to be the head pro at Woburn, and he doesn't teach the swing. He teaches the shot. And he says there are 7 shots in golf: a pitch, a putt, a chip, a high draw, a low draw, high fade, and a low fade. He said, you hit all those shots. Said, you hit all those shots, and you got a great swing. You get the swing for free, he says. So it's quite, in a way, it's kind of frustrating in some regard, because obviously you go for a lesson with him, and he's like, I want you to hit a real draw. And he says, I want the ball to go right of the simulator line, start right, so you have your send line, start the ball right of the line at 1 o'clock, and then I want it to bend back to the middle. So you have you make the right shade of orange. You know, you're getting red as you send and you yellow as you bend. And he doesn't let, we're not allowed to talk about technique. It's not that he doesn't think it's necessary. Of course it is, but it's more, we talked about in the last podcast with Wayne about opening the hood of the car and messing around. But he wants me just to get on the pedals. And the thing is, I hit the ball shorter than I did before. My handicap has come down massively. And all I think about is intent. So I stand over the ball and I say, the ball will go right to left. It will. You obviously have to practice this, but you have to practice the shape. And I can picture the ball coming off my club, flying through the air, going right to left, landing on, and then rolling up towards the hole. And it's all the only thing I have in my mind is like a picture of the ball flight. Does it happen every time? No. But does it happen more often than when I'm just picturing, like just thinking about my right elbow, you know, or whatever? And I just wanted to get your, obviously this, I teach trumpet quite a lot like this now, because I just realized that music has to be the main attention point in a lot of ways, because if you're hearing something musical, like in your mind, if you're trying to, you have to be able to sing it before you can play it. And I don't mean technically. You have to know what it is that you're actually trying to do. So if I stand over the ball and I don't know what shot I'm going to hit, I'm just going to hit the ball. Game over. Like, am I going to cut this on like a high cut? And someone will say, a lot of people, I don't, you know, oh, you have to learn your stock swing first, and then you draw shape. It's like, it doesn't feel like that. Actually, it's a game. Playing the trumpet's a game. It's a game. You know, it's not. Yeah, we want a repeatable swing. We want a repeatable set of chops. But at the end of the day, people's expression ability on the instrument isn't high enough. That is what I realize. They're not able to play loud enough. They're not able to play quiet enough. They're not able to play stable enough, high enough, low enough. They're not allowed to play with enough ripping vibrato. These are all different shots on the golf course. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So when the mind has its idea expanded, it has more possible expression ability, and then you point your attention at what the sound is going to be, and you let the systems figure it out. Like, that has to be the only way that I learnt, or anyone else actually learnt. What is it that's getting in the way of people being able to learn that way? And do you think that anything that I'm saying is making sense or is worth considering? Because for me, the handicaps come down when I stop thinking about golf or the swing. Sure. And people, the doorway to the truth is narrow, right? Everyone else is trying to do the other thing, and everyone's getting rich off it too, right? Everyone's getting rich off charging loads and loads of money for golf lessons and telling you that your hamstrings are tight. It's like, that can't be right. And this is a master PGA. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm overreading it, but
I think there is absolute merit in everything that you just said about that. The visualization of the shot, the different sorts of swings and different outcomes, and absolutely 100%. The parallel to that is in the trumpet world, to hear it and to play it. And there are some great teachers out there that, and this is not a criticism, it's just what's going on. No, don't sound like this. I'll play it, sound like this. No, that's not. No, that's the ball's turning right. I want it to turn left. Look when I do it, it goes from right to left. Look when I play it. Listen to when I play it. It sounds like this. And a good teacher will go, when you play it, it sounds like this, and can choke or pinch or overblow or whatever the case may be.
Because if you can't hear the concept, then you don't know where you're aiming.
So there is merit in that. But for the trumpet player who goes, I think I'm doing what you're saying, but I'm not getting the result. I'm not getting the... Why? I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to do it and I can't. That's where I come in.
Right. No, that's cool.
It's the why can't I? He's telling me to draw the ball, but why isn't it happening? So then you go, right, okay, so here's the intention. The intention is I want you to go right to left, because that's one of the 7 swings that we want to develop. The reason that you're having trouble with that is, now let's break it down. I want you to recognize, now let's not forget that the brain, here he is here. Everyone, say hello, Brian the Brain. Hey, Brian, how you going? Brian is our default. Brian is our default. He's our current wiring. He's our current understanding. He's the way that we do everything. He is our subconscious brain right now. Now, if we're completely satisfied with our trumpet playing and golf playing, Brian and I are the best buddies, and we no issue here. If there's a problem, the brain needs what I call the viable option. And I need to change this picture because it's not easy hard. It's right and wrong. Brian, when I go to play that high C and I keep cracking it, that's not what I want, right? So we can hear it or whatever. No, I'm actually going down a bad pathway here, but we can have the intention of playing the high C, but we keep missing it over and over and over and over and over. Why? Yeah. Well, let me show you that when you go to play this, what you're doing is you're actually overloading here because you think that you've got to really engage from hundreds of years of being told to blow harder, to play higher. And then what that's doing is creating a bit of compression in your throat. And in fact, one of the massive issues is, and this is probably one of my absolute favourites, I call it the compression cavalry, because most people don't know what to do in the mouth. So when they don't know what the mouth is supposed to do, what do? Rely on... There's a question mark for the lipstick, you know. I don't know what to do with the mouth, so I'm going to blow the crap out of the horn, right? So what we do is get people to recognise, number one, the feeling of what they're doing, the feeling of the error. When you go to do that draw, you're not releasing the club face, and you're actually staying open, so the ball's actually turning to the right. So we've got to have that understanding. Remember the brain, the knowledge and the understanding. We've got to have that. Remember, the brain learns by the feeling. We don't store the feeling until we've experienced it, and we'll find that feeling faster when we understand the mechanics of it. Now, that's all driven. Don't forget the visualization is number one, right? It's up the top. We're going to have that visualization of what we want. We want that high, you know, fade or draw or whatever the case may be. We can see that. Then, once we do achieve it, there's a feeling attached to that. And there's a feeling attached to not doing it. And our job is to give the brain that's not it, this is it, the different feeling, hence in my picture at the start, visualization, feeling, messaging. So our conscious conversation to Brian the Brain is, Brian, we're friends. But at the moment, your default, when I go to hit a high fade or hit a high C, the processes in which you are doing that are not right. They're not conducive to the result that I want. We need to change that, right?
Okay, so
feeling attached to that.
Okay, I had an idea. So, you know, there are people in the world who, they've never driven a car. They've never driven a car before, and they just get in the car and it just works. They can just drive it, or
a manual?
They've never done it. They've done, yeah. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like, they've done one driving lesson and it just works.
Sure.
Competence, right?
Yep.
Or they've never done a handstand, and they just try and do it and it just works. Or there are some people in the world, I've met them before, who just have a high level of competence at everything. Maybe they suffer socially, or there's some other thing in their life that they need to struggle on. I don't know. Like, I'm just making this like random person up, but I think we all know people like that. We go, why is he just good at everything? Do you think that those people are the people that just have like an innate intuition about this learning triangle that you've got going on? Like, do you think that they can see and they are able to get the messaging quickly? Like, they have this process down? Is that what makes them quick learners? There are some people that can't pass a driving test in 5 times on a manual.
Right.
Why can't you do that? I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to say,
no.
What do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's the bell curve again. It's the anomaly. You're going to get the high achievers and people that just adapt to. But again, if it's a physical thing, that might mean that as far as maths goes, or psychology, or physiology, or philosophy, or art, or painting, whatever the case may be, they might have a prowess for the piano player who's the great golfer, who's the sports captain, and the this and that and the other. But they're the anomaly. It's not normal for people to learn like this, because most people that play trumpet, let's just say for argument's sake, there are 10 million trumpet players in the world. The tiniest percentage play at the highest level. Yeah. They're all, I believe, and I cop a bit of heat for this, but I believe someone recently on one of my Facebook ads said range is a genetically limiting thing. We're limited by our genetics, which I cannot buy into at all. What there is, you said competence. There is a massive illusion of competence.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm looking in the mirror, I see a king, but in reality, I'm just, I'm not the king. But we don't recognise the incompetence because we think we're doing things correctly. But I go, well, are you getting the result that you want? No. Well, then Brian's got it wrong. We need to tell him what he's doing wrong. An error has a feeling. The result that we want has a feeling. I had a Cobra rep recently tell me that the 4 hybrid that I bought was a piece of crap because he goes, are you hooking it a lot? I said, yeah, I'd only just bought it. It's developed in a particular way. And he said, oh, that's a terrible club. I paid $350 for it. It can't be a terrible club. So what does Greg do? Learns how to hit the thing properly, and all of a sudden I'm hitting a 4 hybrid. I hit one 175 carry out to 185 metres for a 4 hybrid. And it was the most effortless hit. And I stood there and went, there's one of those beautiful moments. I call it a coffee moment, where all of a sudden Brian and Greg both go, beep. I didn't see that coming. Yeah. Wow, look at the power of that flow, connection, process. Brian, just do that. And then we go to repeat it again, and we screw it up, and we screw it up, and we get frustrated, and we're frustrated, but then we find it again and get a dopamine release. There it is, just do that. And then we miss, and we miss, and then we get it again, and then we get it again, and the feeling becomes more familiar. So whether we recognize it or not, the brain learns by the feeling. So your visualization intention is high draw, high hook. Great. But it's when you've experienced it, whether it's on a conscious or subconscious level, you're storing the feeling and trying to make that repeatable. And my approach is understand why it worked, store the feeling, and it's going to make it repeatable faster because you know what.
That makes sense. Yeah. So I thought we could move the conversation on to neurological disorders and your experience with them. And I have a few questions here. Maybe I'll just ask all of the questions and then we can just... So you're an expert in the field of neurological disorders, especially relating to the effect it has on wind players. 1, why do these neurological disorders happen? 2, is there anything one can do to prevent it? And 3, Do you come across any patterns in your research and experience of personality or character that leads to these kinds of breakdowns?
Great questions, and literally we could sit here for 10 hours to actually say the thesis that will be the answer to those questions. Let's start with the last one first. With ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're watching this, kudos to Lou Dowdeswell, one of my, I'm such a fan, and for you putting this out, magnificent, my friend.
Thank you.
Musicians' dystonia, and we're moving away from. There's a term called focal dystonia, musicians' focal dystonia, and we're taking the focal out because it's musicians and there's a dystonia connected. So I'll start with that first because one, most people would never have heard of it. Yet, all of a sudden, there's this phenomenon of musicians disappearing from orchestras or bands. They're just not turning up anymore. Oh, they're not playing anymore. It's like, oh, that's weird. Why? It's everywhere, right? So what happens is the brain, for whatever reason, so I'll get into the character traits in a second. For some reason, Phil Smith, amazing New York Philharmonic trumpet player for 25 years, developed musicians' focal dystonia. Involuntary muscle activations to the point where I've seen things. This guy was told that he had early onset Parkinson's disease. And we'd done a lesson and we're 45 minutes through and he picks up his visualizer and all of a sudden I see this going on. So what's going on with the shake there? And he goes, oh, I've got early onset Parkinson's disease. Oh, Greg brain on the inside. Brian, I'm not convinced about this. We did some diagnostics and basically by the end of it, I said, I'm not a doctor. I haven't studied psychology or neurology, physiology at all. I've got real life experiences of seeing what's going on, right? And I said, have you heard of musicians' focal dystonia? He said, no. I said, go pick up your trumpet and play me a note. And everything started shaking. He brings his visualizer towards his mouth. It's like a fish, like imagine a fishing line. Involuntary muscle activations. So that comes into the character type. There are a particular kind of character that I believe has the propensity to develop this condition. Perfectionism. Pressure from parents when we're growing up to be better or to practice more, to be better. The conductor's scary. The section that you're playing in are threatening. The audience is threatening. It's a fear-based.
It sounds like a lot of stress, cortisol.
It's a lot of stress. It's a central nervous system fight, flight response, right? It's a protection. So Brian goes into, oh, Greg's not happy with playing anymore. He doesn't want to play, obviously, because he's giving me all these signals that he's not confident. He feels threatened. He doesn't feel like he's good enough to get the job done. And so I'm going to stop him from playing. So every time he goes to play a drum, his hand goes limp, or every time he goes to play guitar, his fingers curl up, or right? There's these.
Is that Brian saying that? Brian is saying, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, because people don't recognise what Brian is and what he's doing and why he's doing it, they just go into this, I can't play anymore. And then it's just confusion. Right? You can't have confidence and doubt. You can't have understanding and confusion. So we work on
category error, yeah.
And again, so the reason that people with dystonia have come to me is because of I got an email saying, Greg, thank you for everything that you do. No, before that one. Early on, like over 15 years ago. Greg, have you heard of a condition called musicians' focal dystonia? And my response ignorantly, rather than understand that the universe is giving me a message here and Greg, go and sort it out. I'm about to hop in my car to go to a gig, and I replied going, oh, nah, sorry, I never heard of it, but it sounds delicious, right? And it's just stupid comment, right? And I said, look, I said it as a joke, just joking, but I actually don't know what it is. Sorry, I can't be of any assistance. Then years later, I just got back from America, And I'd gone around to all these different universities, and I'm swamped by people with this dystonia thing. David Vining at Flagstaff, of all places in the middle of bloody Arizona or whatever. Oh, yeah, David Vining's here. He's like gone through it on trombone, lost his job, lost his career, but he's through it. And all over America, I'm finding this. And then I get to the airport to fly home, and there's this, "Hi, Greg, thank you for everything that you're doing for people with dystonia."
Oh, right.
What am I doing? The reason that people with, remember I brought this out before, magnifying glass, introverted learning, eyes closed. If you were to listen to a piece of music and you wanted to transcribe it, can't quite hear what the strings are doing in the background there. You're going to listen really closely. You're going to close your eyes and really listen to, it's a C sharp there, right, yeah. With us, we've got to close our eyes and 100% focus on the feeling. What's the body doing? What's it doing? Where's it doing it? We've got to get the magnifying glass out and find what involuntary, unnecessary muscle activations are happening in the system. Okay? So the big thing with dystonia is these people with high expectations, perfectionism, high achievers generally, high pressure, and all of a sudden something like with Mr. Smith, I think there was a little leak developed, and all of a sudden it's like, I wonder what that leak is. Me, I'd go, I think call it the Ziploc. The orbicularis oris, this little muscle around here, is stronger than your entire thoracic system. And people will go, that can't be true. And I'll go, well, I'll prove it to you. If I put my finger between my teeth and blow really hard, there's no leak. If these muscles and the compression were stronger, this had happened. The lips would blow apart. But why aren't they blowing apart? Because this is stronger than this. So I've got an understanding of the mechanics. So a little leak or something like that won't affect me on an emotional level. But if you've got a little seed of doubt about your playing, I'm a bit uncomfortable about this, don't make me play that. Oh, I've got to play this, I'm a bit exposed. People don't want to be humiliated. They don't want to be embarrassed. This is the biggest fear of our life. People don't like public speaking because they don't want to be humiliated. So there is this fear of failure. So the brain goes into a massive meltdown of, I'm going to stop you from playing because you clearly don't want to, right? So we've got to then get to work and go, well, hang on a minute. I showed you the picture of desire before. You want to see the learning process in a really simple little picture? It's this. Brian versus desire. We've got our 1.0 brain. It's our default. It's our current wiring. And we've got our desire to improve. Now, if you're watching this podcast and you're playing your instrument, let me tell you that the learning process of the instrument is far simpler than someone going through focal dystonia because they've got involuntary muscles acting against them all the time. But if your desire is strong enough, you will beat the default because conscious messaging, the conscious brain always wins. But the conscious brain can only win when it's got the knowledge of the system.
But you also have to have control over your attention, Greg. Like, I wonder how much this is the biggest problem. When I was in crisis at the end of 2023, man, that would have been interesting. I realized, and also I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 20. I don't even really believe in it anymore. When the main reason that everything was falling apart around me was the fact that I had zero control over my attention. So what these people are probably won't be the case for everyone, of course, but like, and obviously with all the distractions in the world, the phones and whatnot, like our attention is being taken away from us, and we don't have any control over it. And some of these people who are struggling with focal dystonia, if they can't do a simple thing, which by the way isn't simple, if you don't know how to do it or you haven't done it for a long time, as to actually be able to point your attention or actually focus. And I don't mean not be distracted by your phone. I mean actually point your attention at something.
Oh, absolutely.
then it doesn't matter how much desire you have. If your desire is high, like you can point your attention at your desire, but can you actually point your attention for longer than 1 second at something without your thoughts or things in your mind taking you away from that? Like, I realized I had zero control over attention, zero. And that's what they would call attention deficit hyperactive disorder, you know?
Yeah.
The thing is, if you practice attention, which is the only thing you have, by the way, it's even more important than time itself, because attention is inside time. People say, oh, the most important thing you have is time. It's not. You can have all the time in the world, but if you can't point your attention at what it is that you want to do, then it doesn't even matter that you have time. Because most of the time you just sat there worrying about tomorrow's gig or worrying about what you just did. Or so what I'm saying is, like, maybe it's an even further step back that they may want to get over their dystonia. They may want to get over this neurological problem, but they haven't got the tool of simple pointing one's attention to even acknowledge the feeling. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I have a student who is a very, very high achieving Universal Studios sort of jazz trumpet megastar in Seoul in South Korea. And he came out to my place here in Coolum for about 10 days to get he busted his chops. He's just doing it wrong for so long. But he's got ADHD. So the learning process is a little bit different with that condition. So we're adding, and as yet, I'm yet to, and I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I'm yet to experience someone.
Well, it's quite a broad statement from me, by the way, about ADHD, but just having gone through it. Right?
Well, it's a real thing and it exists. But I've never actually experienced anyone with ADHD that's had dystonia, which if they're out there, come and talk to me. That's not to say that if you've got that, you're not going to get this. It's just I haven't experienced that. Because the number one thing that I work on, and this is the same with golf, and it's the same with brass playing or overcoming dystonia. I worked with a drummer last week who's high, I won't say names, but he's on the scene not far from where you live. Well, was until he developed dystonia. And so the number one thing, and this is the same for just general teaching for anyone watching at any level of their playing, we don't want to use what we don't need until we do need it. Let's eliminate anything that's not necessary for the job that we're trying to achieve. So in order to overcome dystonia, we have to go back to what I call stillness or a blank canvas, which is literally, and I'm going to pose this question to you, what happens if you try to sit in stillness, which means calm mind, no racing thoughts, no threat, fear, confusion, doubt, negative emotion, calm mind with a slight bit of can't wait to learn, bit of dopamine in the side of the grin, no negative thoughts or impulses in the brain, no involuntary spasms, twitches, anything happening. I've seen so many, I can tell you 10 different stories of people with, I've been shaking because I had a stroke, or I've got an essential tremor. By one session, it's gone. And they're like, wow, they've been led to believe by neurologists that they've got these conditions that aren't what they've been told. So we go to stillness, which means relax as much as you can without falling over and close your eyes. Now with ADHD, that can set off fireworks.
Oh yeah, horrendous. Yeah,
you lose context of what's around you, so all of a sudden it creates a lot of questions. So with people with ADHD, I have to teach differently because I'm aware that the eyes closed to focus in on a feeling doesn't work. You're better off having your eyes open and sending your attention to something that you're working on.
Okay, my experience with ADHD was that it still is, like, my mind has to be attentive to something.
Yeah.
So I have to choose, like, because the moment that you realize in meditation that you're not thinking of anything is a moment that you're thinking of something, because you just realize that you're not thinking of anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but you can change, change your, it's a habitual behavior, but you can change your attention away from these things by being aware of your attention. If you're not aware of your attention, you have no idea all the thoughts that you're thinking of. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm just pressing you on the ADHD thing a little, because it just seems to me like an extra fiery version of just the human mind. I think that part of it to do as well is to do with the mechanism by which being uncomfortable forces you to distract yourself. So, for example, if you were raised with distractions, so let's say that you were uncomfortable as a baby or as a child or something, and then your parents distracted you with something, rather than you starting to develop a natural pattern with that, so that when you go to the classroom and you find yourself bored or you feel uncomfortable or something like that, you have learnt through repetition
need some stimulation
to distract yourself, to distract yourself, because because you're not comfortable in your own uncomfortableness, or you're not comfortable in your own stillness, or you're not comfortable in being in an environment like that. So that was my experience with it. It has gone because I have clarity and I can actually point it somewhere, but I wasn't even aware of it in the first place, because the moment that one acknowledges their own uncomfortableness, if their trigger is to then be distracted, then you never get a chance to even not acknowledge it.
Correct.
In the first, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, are some people more prone to this than others? Like, probably. You know, my mother is pretty. She's pretty. Her brain's just like mine. You know, it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
When people can, my wife she's got a lot of control over her mind, and I'm very envious of that. And we talk about it a lot, and she's helped me so much with that sort of thing. But I sort of feel like a lot of these, I'm no expert in focal dystonia or anything, but what you appear to be saying is that we need to reprogram. But if you can't even see into your feelings, then because you can't attend to them, at all.
Well, yeah, as I said, I've never experienced anyone with ADHD and dystonia, and I'd love to work with them.
That's
I don't mind a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Because we've got to. What I mean, Julie, Fubrian.com, Fubrian, Fubrian.com, for anyone who's interested, is my dystonia site. So Fubrian is Fu Brian, which means fix up Brian.
Yeah, that's funny. Sorry, Karen.
It is, because we're changing the brain. We're fixing up Brian, but we have to go Fu Brian to make a change. So this is what it's all about. So we're kind of doing it's not lighthearted because it's such a goddamn serious condition.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But one day the woman, Julie, who's amazing, who I've done this whole, we've recorded for 5 years, over 1,000 hours of her recovery of it, and we're now sharing that with people, getting through it. So they don't have to go through the 5 years that she went through and the years before it. And one day she's just gone, F you, Brian. And it was around that time where we're looking for a name, and Brad, my graphic designer, turned up, and I've gone, Fubrian.com, and he's gone, oh my God, I love it. And she's there shaking her head. She's from Colorado, and we've got two Aussie guys going, yeah, let's do it. So check out Fubrian.com.
Yeah,
it's a very, very serious thing. But I'm about to lose my train of thought. Right, so where I was, I think my brain was going with this was like, not everyone's susceptible to getting the condition, but we've got the understanding. We recognise that the brain's got a default sort of setting, and it's doing something that we don't want it to do. So we sit in stillness, and we use the feeling with the eyes closed to recognise what's going on in the system. Now, of course, with ADHD, and that's what I was asking you about, if you close your eyes, you cannot focus on the feeling of going through and finding involuntary muscle activations through the system. This is a problem because we need to be able to detect. In fact, this is very, very important. I'm going to go through and find a picture. I've just got 10 thoughts going through my head because, Mr. Dowdeswell, you're asking. Well, no, it's not prying. It's asking amazing questions about really important topics. We've got the error trilogy. Now, this is the same for anyone learning anything. Got the radar here. It's error detection. What's going wrong? Well, I keep hitting it to the right and want to hit to the left. Okay. Well, error rejection. I'm not going to do that anymore. A lot of people accept mediocrity or inability. That's okay.
Yeah.
I can play to a degree. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Right? Error detection, error rejection, error correction. That's what we do. So we've got to correct any errors that are in the system. So the way that we do that, again, I'm going to say it 1,000 times, the brain learns by the feeling. So we need to be able to show the brain that viable option of what's happening that we don't want happening, right? And then, based on our knowledge and understanding, this is why under the hood, the knowledge of the mechanics is so important to reprogramming, because in order to show the brain what we want, we need to create a new feeling based on our new understandings.
Yeah.
It's a weird concept, right? I need to create a new feeling that's foreign, and people don't like foreign. And this is the way the brain works. When I talk
another way of saying it would be, you have to do something different to see something different, right? It's as simple as that.
The problem out there is I want to do something different, but I don't want to do anything different. I want to play better, but I don't want to do anything different. It's true, right? This is the way. Let me show you very simply.
Why does he sound like that and I sound like this? Yeah.
But man, I cop this every single day of my life. I want to sound like him. Okay, well, the problem is that you're doing this instead of doing that. Yeah, but I don't do that. I do this. Okay. So I break down, and this is the brain part, is the knowledge. From where I sit, for the brain to commit to learning something new, it must have the desire to learn and change. It's got to be open to change. And then it's got to have a logical understanding of what we're working on. Yeah. So I will say to someone, and I've had this experience with people quite close right now, brass playing's no harder than humming, talking and singing. And if I go, and I'm not blowing the instrument, I've basically taken a breath in and I've pulled the bow back and I release. Right? What happens? Brian goes, that can't work. But then I go, well, I want the lips to interact with the air as if they're the vocal cords. So let's hum. And then we're going to move the oscillation point to the lips. And I go through a bunch of explanations and all those sorts of things. All of a sudden, the logic part of the brain goes, well, this must work. Oh, that makes sense. I can't do it yet, and I know it's going to feel different. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but this is where the conscious mind has to come over Brian's. Brian wants to keep us alive. He wants to keep us breathing, blood pumping, all that sort of boring stuff. It doesn't want to have to spend energy working on refined micro connection of the club or what's happening micro inside the mouthpiece cup. I'm happy to tighten my lips and blow hard. I'm getting the job done. It doesn't feel good. It's hard work, but it sounds okay, and I'm getting paid, so I'll happily do that. Unless you're at the point where you go, I'm sick and tired of that, I'm going to change. So then we've got new knowledge, and the brain suddenly goes, oh, that must work. I get conceptually what Greg's saying.
Yeah.
I understand the mechanics of this system. I'm simply moving an oscillation point from here to here.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about this. I've just written down in my notes here opera singing. Okay. So my wife's an opera singer.
Yes.
And obviously, I always knew best, right? Like, obviously, that was the case. I always knew best.
Oh, that's why we're both here, because we just both know the best.
Yeah,
Just ask us.
that's why we're spending 2 hours trying to figure it out. Yes, obviously, for 10 years, I knew best. But it turns out she knew best. And so she's just started a choir at our parish church, and I've joined it.
I love that.
And I've always been able to sing, like kind of a baritone, but always had a pretty airy, untrained voice. Sing a tune, couldn't sing for very long. When I wanted to sing high, I had to force it, the usual. But I found this point, this like weird, I like to think of it as digging in. I've got this like weird digging in point on my vocal cords. It's like I'm riding it. It's like I'm riding above them. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not a trained singer or anything like that. And actually, we're going back to the right shade of orange. It feels like it's like I'm making the core of the sound the yellow, and then the kind of airy bit is the red, and just getting that right amount. And so you got the kind of nasality with the body, right? Because you need the nasality, but just not too much, and not too much body, and you got to get the mix right, the mix of paint.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I found this place in my voice, and all of a sudden I can sing up to high A's, B flats as a tenor. Pretty, I don't want to say effortlessly, but it sounds totally different to how my voice used to sound. And obviously, if I then try and sing bass afterwards, it's all wrong. You know, it's like playing trumpet. You play high all day and then try and play low. It's not very comfortable, and then vice versa. Same thing. But it was really amazing to me because I realized that, yeah, all the trumpet is just the correct use of the vocal cords, but just move further forwards.
Right. It's a shape.
That's it.
It's a shape.
Yeah.
It's a shape.
But there is an interesting difference, and this is something I've been talking to my wife about, is that we have an oral cavity. And the oral cavity in the vocals, as a vocalist, happens after the resonating point, the vibration point, the reed. And so the trumpet is our amplifier. Yeah, but interestingly enough, we have an oral cavity before our reed.
We do, which is important. Yep.
Now I don't know the details of singers or anything like that. Maybe they have this same thing that happens before their reed, right? I'm not sure, but we do have an oral cavity that is directing. I like to feel like the kind of direction of the air over the reed, right? That's what it feels like to me anyway. And when I get this right on my vocal cords, if I direct the air over my vocal cords correctly, they're actually, interestingly enough, they're actually closer together. They feel like they're closer together than they used to be. They feel like that. They might not be, but just being open and dumping loads of air through it is not as good as finding the resonance spot and then just allowing the air to simply pass over them. It's possible that some people's chops may be too open, and as a result are having to dump air through because it's not on what I like to refer to as the digging in point, where you can almost make the chops not consciously smaller with the lips, but like dig the airstream into the back of the lips so that it how do I, this is maybe a good analogy, I don't know, you know when you've got like a pull string on something and you zzz, and when you pull it the right speed you get that sort of efficient kind of zzz thing. How do I describe this? It's just an analogy I'm just coming up with on the spot, just in the logos. Or if you put it too slowly, it's kind of got that unsatisfying sensation. Whereas if you just get the zip just right at the beginning, maybe it's like lawnmower as well. You know when you're trying to start a lawnmower? Sure. It's not actually always about how hard you pull it. It's about the resonant point of the pulling. God, how do I put this into words?
It's what the system needs to get the result. And like for a lawnmower, there's a degree of velocity required in the pull, and then.
But it's when the velocity comes in the pull. Like if you just pull straight away, it locks up on you. Or like a car seat.
Pull it too hard.
A seatbelt, it pulls and it locks up. It's the same thing. Yeah. So you have to. it's a different thing, but it's the same sensation.
It's
Does that make
different
sense?
but the same. Absolutely. Yeah. There is a fine point of energy flowing through something that's vibrating, or that's microsecond where a golf club hits a golf ball, and there's all this stuff that happens on either side of it. But at that moment of creation of the result, there is that perfect balance of shape and energy flow.
Yeah.
That's all there is. There's energy and there's connection of something. There's connection of club head and ball, or there's connection of now I've moved the oscillation point from here to here. I've taken a breath and I'm not blowing. I've taken a breath. Lungs are here. Relax. And it's a fortissimo low C, and it's freaking effortless. The only effort that's required there is to hold the instrument up.
Yeah.
So therefore, Your Honour, brass playing's are harder than humming. And you'll go, yeah, but as someone said, try humming MacArthur Park. And I said, well, let's be reasonable here.
Yeah, but I need to get to this point, because it is important that we don't. It's not snake. I don't want people to discard what you're saying.
No.
Because they see Maynard and Wayne and me pushing, right? Like, I push when I play high.
You're creating energy. Absolutely, there is required. If I stay,
it doesn't sound passive. Yeah.
No. If I stay passive and don't engage the body at all, especially given the fact that I'm gigging a lot less, but I'm about to play with Human Nature for the 20 years of the Motown albums that I played on, so I've got to get my chops into order. But if I don't activate at all, I can't even sustain a high C. There's not enough compression in the air. So then that comes down to, don't use what we don't need until we do need it. With an understanding of the mechanics, I know that I can go, and if I want to load up and play louder, the body's going to become involved. But we can hum actively as well. I'm going to go to my lead mouthpiece now, and I'm still humming, but I'm humming actively. So brass playing's so harder than humming, talking and singing, but sometimes we might hum actively. We make playing a lot harder than what it needs to be, my friend. Right?
Sometimes, don't do it the wrong way. Sometimes you remind me of when you get your bow and arrow out. You sort of remind me of like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old's birthday party. The clown turns up with this bow and arrow.
Here's another one of my teaching tools.
What are we doing?
But the cool thing is, to teach someone, you've got to break it down like they're a 5-year-old.
They want to. It's better to learn like a 5-year-old as well. You know, you got me laughing my head off. You know, learn much more in that state than you will in the state of, frustration. Okay, so that's good. I want to move on to the last section.
Yes.
We could do 15 of these podcasts and never stop. So, but I'm going to move us on to the onto the last section. And this is a meaning of life question. But one of the things that I think we talked a lot about when I was going through my period of not so comfortable life. it was in the question of why I was doing any of the things I was doing, why I was putting this YouTube channel together, why I was doing the podcast, and something in my soul didn't feel right, and it wasn't right, and my experience of the world was such that I always thought that there was a transactional, how do I put it, a moment of transaction between two parties of value, usually monetary, because that was all the language I had been told and knew, really. And it wasn't that I wasn't brought up morally correct. It was that there was a disconnect between that sense of morality and the business or the industry or why I was doing any of these things. And in our conversations, you just said to me, man, it's just altruism. And I remember sort of thinking, well, but I remember thinking, why is he helping me? Like, what's in it for him? That was the question I asked. Something in my mind was saying, why does he want to help me? Why is he giving up his time to help me? And there are other people I see in the world who have done things for me, in the industry too, and I've always thought, what do they want? Why are they helping me? Now, that's a very sad and dark place to be, right? So I'm out of that now. I get it now. I have a whole other worldview. Everything is way more coherent than it ever was before. That'll be maybe for another podcast, maybe for an individual video sometime.
Sure.
But the reason I'm asking this question is because I have now gone through the philosophy of not through and out the other side of altruism, but I understand where my altruism now comes from. And I've got a question written here, which is, we have talked a lot about the philosophy of altruism. What convinced you this was the most effective way of living, and what is the source of your morality that allows for it? Can you answer that in 15 minutes, or should we do a bit on it and then do another podcast on it?
Well, let's find out. Number one, philosophy of...
What's in it for you? Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, I can easily explain that. I can easily explain that because I was sitting at home teaching someone who paid for a 1 hour lesson. We're in the four and a half hour of our lesson. And I had to leave to do a gig, and I'm apologising to him because at that stage I was not getting contentment from doing gigs. I was getting contentment from helping people. But that ties into what I said to you at the start. I love learning and sharing. And sharing is the fastest way of learning. There's the mastery of learning. Everyone gets the input of information. Watch any golf video. We've got the input of information. Oh, you've got to do that. You've got to come down inside. You've got to put your sweep, blah, 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 blah. That's not helping anyone, right? But that's okay. We'll talk about that later. There is a process of learning, and there is a contentment of teaching people. Oh, so the mastery of learning, input of information.
Yeah.
But to learn correctly, you've got to get the information. Then you've got to reflect on how it impacts me. Is that important for me? How is that useful for me? Then there's integration, integrate it into being me, and then sharing. Sharing is part of the learning process, because let me tell you, the one way to learn whether you know something is try and explain it to somebody else. And you're umming and ahhing means you don't know it. But that's not the reason. There was no reason behind this. There was no modus operandi, what's the term I'm after? Ulterior motive in this. Okay. I love learning, and I go, I've been there. I can help you. So
would you say that maybe you're at your most fluid in that, like at your most fluid in that state? You're most energized, most enthusiastic in that state? Your 100%. Spirit is its highest when you're in that state.
Vibrating high, baby. When I'm helping someone, I'm like, they need help and I can help them. What a beautiful thing. And man, you wanted some help, and we're talking, and it's like, what energy do I need? I'm in a dark place. I want to get to a bright place, a light place. Great. How do we get there? It's the journey. It's the mystery to mastery. It's the I'm here. I don't know how to get out of this. I'm suffering. Now I understand. I've got the information, the knowledge, the brain. Then there's a visualization, there's the feeling, there's the messaging.
Well, you also have to have trust, right? Because I had to trust you that your way was better than the other way. Right? And that was the hardest thing for me, was seeing the world into and having to like die inside in a way and grieve it and then move. But to do that, you have to trust.
You have to.
And I had to trust. I had to trust that you were being genuinely altruistic and not just wanting something.
Yeah.
You know, in the long term.
There's no point.
Right?
There's no point. Let me tell you a little bit about me, and we haven't discussed this, but years ago, someone gave me a book called The Power of Now. And I read it. And I went, shit, I could have written that. Because what it's based on is there's one reality. There's a reality. Right now, we all live in our realities and we're struggling on our clarinet, or we've got Estonia, or we're playing trumpet, whatever. If we're not happy with that reality, then we need to change something. It's very simple. I'm not happy, I need to change it, or we need to accept it. But rejecting reality is equal to insanity. So we either accept the reality that is around us, we have no choice, or we go, and this is one of my favourite little fellows here, if I can find him, the dog on the splinter. Yelp! Sato, the dog. He's sick and tired. This dog sat next to his owner from the time he was a puppy. And there was a little splinter, but it didn't bother him. The pain wasn't there. But then all of a sudden, as the years go by, the splinter gets sharper and sharper and sharper. And there's more and more pain until that day comes. And it's unbearable. I cannot cope with this pain anymore. I need to change something. I cannot accept this pain. So he starts gnawing away on the splinter. Finally, we've been driven to make change. So there is a reality, and we either accept the reality or we change it, but we cannot reject reality. I got called for a $30 gig and I said yes, but then I turned up and it was this, and I had to play hard and I had to do this and I had to do that, and they only paid me $30. It's like, well, dude, you said yes to a $30 gig. So don't bag the gig. Blame the fact that, that you said yes to it, right? So there is that psychology of we've got our reality around us. Are we happy with it or not? Why not? Can we change it? I can't change it, so therefore I have to accept it, or I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to make a change. And that's what I did, and that's what I shared with people, because everything that I'd heard about brass playing was not helping. And then so I learned other stuff because I was really curious and really pissed off. Why can't I do... I've got pictures of bloody... me and James Morrison, and me and Bobby and Charlie Davis and Arturo, and I met all these cats, and I'm like, whilst they're probably really smart cats, I don't think it's an intellect thing that's stopping me from playing like them. What is it? So then you go searching, and if you've got desire and compassion and there's big urgency, but just obsession, then you'll find the answer. The other part of me is the 4 agreements. I don't know whether you've heard of that, but it's...
I've read the book, I think you put me onto the book. I've read the book, I love it.
There you go. It's be impeccable with your word. So it's very easy to tell little white lies. Don't do that. To be honest, if something that you've got to say, either don't say it or say it with compassion, because the person needs to hear it.
Your word is your power, right? It's your power.
Right. If the world
it's going to ripple into the world. I mean, these people, I used to be very nihilistic. I didn't even realize it. But these people who think that every single word that they utter out of their mouths isn't affecting the world, it is. You're rippling down into the world some energy or some intent, some attention.
Oh, you said the word.
Point your intention and your intent in the right places. Aim correctly or as best you can, and you will your power will be used. Like, no one is powerless. People think they are. They're not. You can either, that definitely, that's a better story. That's a way better story than the other one. That's what I'm seeing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. But it also ties into one of the other agreements is don't take anything personally. And that depends on the intention of the person saying whatever it is that they said. Yeah. So if someone intends to bring you down, then you take it personally, but their intention was nefarious. Where if you go, I'm going to be impeccable with my word, I'm not going to take anything personally because that's a reflection of the other person. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm sincere in my intention to help people, and I am. And to just hark back slightly to the
only person that knows that, by the way, is you, though, and that's why trust is important. But that's another thing.
Well, I mean,
but you can't do anything else. You can't do anything else. Yeah.
Not try and create rapport. Hopefully, you create rapport by talking honestly, right?
Leading by example and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the altruism thing, I believe it or not, I still get gas bills. Oh, I actually don't get gas bills. I tell a lie because we don't have gas in Queensland. But I've still got bills to pay. We still need to live. So I charge for my services. I have to. That's the world we live in. You know, we don't live out in the sticks barter society, which would be really off-grid nice. So we've got be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Never assume. That's tough. That's tough. Never assume. You watch how often we assume things. Never assume, because even something silly like a business meeting, I just assumed that you realised I meant 3 o'clock. Well, don't assume it. Daylight savings changed. I meant 4 o'clock, you know. Yeah. And one of my favourites is always try your best. Just do your best. That's all you can do. People can only. I'm with again my circle here, with the knowledge and understanding that I've got, with the visualization of what I want to achieve, with the feelings that I know than what I want, what I don't want, and the constant communication between conscious brain and subconscious brain. With all of that, just try your best. I'm doing as much as I can. And that's what you've done, and that's what I've done, and that's what people Cassie Porter, who I did an interview with at Peregian Golf Club when she was 18 years old, and I'm saying, can I interview you and Dan, your coach caddy, because I love your psychology, I love your work ethic, I love the way that you go about business. Dude, she got her card last year. On the weekend, she just played at Blue Bay LPGA, second thing, 4th place. She played with Minjee Lee and Gino Tiddigat on the last round and came 4th. That's dedication. It's just, and you listen to her talk. She's 22 years old and she goes, I just want to have fun. I just want to play amongst the great people. I'm going to work my freaking ass off to get as good as I possibly can. I'm going to try my best. Right? And it's, I believe that...
You've only got so much time, right? You might as well use it.
Oh, dude. You know, not everyone's cut out to be at that level 3 high level, and you don't have to be.
Well, no, but those same people will be called to do something else with their time that is maybe even more valuable than just getting good at something, right? Like,
or it's going to pay the bills but be really unsatisfying.
Yeah, no, I get you. Hey, so look, we're up to somewhere around 1.5 hours. For everyone listening, I've just launched my Trumpet Academy, and I'm going to take Greg onto the Trumpet Academy now for another 30 to 45 minutes of Q&As over there with the people inside the community. And so if you want to hear more of Greg, please check out my Trumpet Academy. It's on the school platform. You'll be able to find it on my social media. And also, everyone, please go check out fubrian.com and mysterytomastery.com to go and check out Greg's program. We're working together on a few things, and it's been really exciting. So anyway, Greg, I just want to say a huge thank you so much for all of your wisdom. It's been an amazing conversation. I hope other people have enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed it. And I think the much like the last one with Wayne, I don't think we're done with this. So I'm sure we'll find some more time in a few months / years to to deal with more of this stuff as we both endeavor to humbly pursue this journey of truth. Anyway,
if you don't mind me just saying one thing to close this out, I think this is really important. And you mentioned to me the other day, we're kind of competitors because I've got an academy and I know you've got your academy. And I said, man, we're not competitors at all. We are people trying to share. What I say is go and check out everything that Lewis has got to offer. Then check out everything that I've got to offer and open. I saw a video today that the guy said, this is the only drill you'll ever need. That's the opposite of reality.
Yeah. Might work today, won't work tomorrow.
Let's just learn stuff and do it as a community.
Yeah, man. I can get behind that. Thank you so much, Greg. And see you guys on the next one.
All right, buddy.